In order to bake a sourdough bread, we need a sourdough starter. If you want to know how to make a sourdough starter, please watch my video on sourdough starter. First, we need to feed our sourdough starter. The fed sourdough starter is called levain. We need 100 grams of levain for this recipe. Let's say if you have 20 grams of starter and feed a starter with 50 grams of flour and 50 grams of water. They will render 120 grams of levain. However, let's say you have 40 grams of starter and you feed 35 grams of flour and 35 grams of water. It will render 110 grams of levain, which is enough for this recipe. However, you should feed at least the same amount of flour and water as a starter, or more. We don't want hungry levain. We want full, happy levain for our bread. So feed the starter with at least the same amount of flour and water. Make sure to measure each on scale. This will help make better bread later. Mix well. Cover with a kitchen towel and leave for 4 to 6 hours. This will expand more than double. I put a piece of tape so that you can see the difference easily later. I will see you 1 or 2 hours before levain is ready. Let's say right now is 9 in the morning. Then the levain will be ready around 3 in the afternoon. However, we need to make a flour mixture 1 to 2 hours before the levain is ready. So I will see you at 2. See you soon! We need to mix flour and water. When you bake, measuring is pivotal. If you don't have a scale, please get one. You will get a much better result. Put a bowl on your scale. Put 400 grams of bread flour. If you don't have a bread flour, use regular flour. In a big bowl, put the 400 grams of bread flour and 50 grams of rye flour. Rye flour has tons of fiber and it's pretty healthy. If you don't have rye flour, just put more regular flour. Add 350 grams of room temperature water. Mix with a silicone spatula. I usually use a silicone spatula because flour mixture doesn't stick to the silicone. If I don't, the flour mixture sticks all over my hand and I have to scrape off with a dough scraper. So I highly recommend using a silicone spatula. By the way, what we are doing right now is called oatlis. This is very important to make a dough easy to handle later, so do not skip this part. Make the mixture into a mound. Cover with cooking wrap or a plastic shower cap. I think a plastic shower cap is fantastic for this use. Levain is done. As you can see, it more than doubled. You see lots of bubbles? That means your starter is strong and good. Although this flow test is so unnecessary, I am doing this so that you can see what that is. Even if yours doesn't float, don't worry. It could be the consistency of your starter, so make your bread anyway. We need 100 grams of levain, the fed starter. Again, measure. Then pour into the dough. Mix and cover for 20 minutes. We are not adding salt yet. Salt actually harms the sourdough starter, but we all know we need salt. So let the starter permeate the dough first. And then we add the salt. Now, let's add the salt. Again, measure 10 grams of salt. With your hand, mix all together. The dough is not that sticky at this point. Cover it for 10 minutes. With your hand, lift and fold. Next 4 hours, bulk fermentation will happen. During the fermentation, we need to lift and fold every 30 minutes. Set the timer so that you won't forget. Try to fold it into a clean ball. Cover it up and repeat this in 30 minutes. So basically, we are going to lift and fold 8 times during the 4-hour period. I know this sounds like a lot of work, but it's so worth it. Even if you buy sourdough bread from the store, you may not get all the health benefits that you do get from homemade sourdough. Because a sourdough needs 12 to 15 hours of fermentation, many stores shorten the process because they have to fast produce bread and sell. This is another reason why we should bake a sourdough bread at home. When you see the bubbles, that's a good sign. On a cutting board, dust some flour. Do the final lift and fold. Transfer the dough to the cutting board. Dust some flour over the dough. Cover with a kitchen towel for 30 minutes so that the gluten can rest. This is important for the final shaping. Dust extra flour. Fold the left and right, top and bottom. Make the dough tighter. Bring another bowl and put a kitchen towel. A narrow bottom bowl will help the dough rise high. Sprinkle rice flour, not the regular flour, because rice flour prevents the dough from sticking to the towel. If you use regular flour, the dough will stick to the kitchen towel. Let's tighten up the dough one last time. As you can see, the dough is pretty tight. With a dough scraper, lift the dough and put it in the bowl. Sprinkle rice flour over the dough and cover with the kitchen towel. Cover with the shower cap. Put it in the fridge overnight. You can bake anytime the next day. Preheat the oven to 475 degrees. In a cast iron pan, put parchment paper so that the dough won't stick to the bottom. Then put the dough. With a razor, score. If you don't score right now, the bread will burst out wherever it needs to burst out while baking in the oven. Then your bread will look messy. I highly recommend a razor. Cover with a Dutch oven. What if you don't have a cast iron pan and Dutch oven? I will show you another way later. For now, put it in the oven and bake for 20 minutes. The dough is going to steam inside the Dutch oven. Uncover and bake another 20 to 25 minutes so that the bread can be crispy. When it comes out, it's a beautiful darker brown. What if you don't have a cast iron pan and Dutch oven? Then pour boiling hot water in a roasting pan. Put it in the lower rack in the oven. Then heat up the oven. That will create the steam you need. Put the dough on parchment paper. Score the dough with a razor. Put it in the Pyrex pan. Then this goes into the steamy oven for 20 minutes. Take out the water tray and bake for 10 minutes. As you can see, the bottom looks undercooked because I am not using a cast iron pan. Flip and bake another 10 to 15 minutes. Put the bread on a wire rack. This one is baked in a cast iron pan and Dutch oven. Both look great in my opinion. Cool the bread on a wire rack for at least 1 hour. If you don't let the bread cool down completely, the bread could be gummy inside. Slice the bread with a serrated knife. A regular knife doesn't quite work. Sourdough bread is so delicious and so healthy due to probiotics. So we should eat this every day. Make a sandwich or serve with soup. Bon appetit!